Who do you think that we should meet next?
When you walk into the Waycam studios, this photo's on display. There's not a name, there's not a date, but apparently it's important. Well, hey guys, it's Ashley. And I found out that the kid here, his name is Parker Bryant. He graduated Wayland High School, and he currently works on some shows that probably all of us have heard of in California. And on this episode of Meet Our Neighbors, we're going to talk to him. So let's go meet him. Today on Meet Our Neighbors, we are welcoming Parker Bryant, a guy that started here in Wayland, and I don't think he lives even on this coast anymore. So Parker, welcome to Meet Our Neighbors.
Thank you for having me.
And where are you located right now?
I currently reside on the West Coast in Los Angeles, California.
What do you happen to do for a living?
Currently I work out here in the film and television industry. My current position, I'm a post-production assistant. So I work with the editors, VFX, post-producers and whatnot, in the process of getting our television series, whichever one I'm on at the time, across the finish line.
So you clean up the messes that someone like me might make if I were to mispronounce a name.
That's partially what we do. Yeah, that's one of the many responsibilities we have. I like to think of us also as the team that gets to create the final draft or write the final version of the product before we deliver it to everyone out there who wants to watch on one of the many platforms that you can watch film or TV today.
Have you worked on any shows that we might have heard of?
Potentially. I've worked on, since I've moved out here, American Horror Stories. I also worked on seasons 1 and 2 of a show called The Recruit, which was a show exclusively on Netflix. And currently I am working on Reacher, the 4th season, which is not out yet, but as of this recording, but it is hopefully coming to everyone's screens soon.
I think I've heard of all 3 of those, so you're not doing too bad.
Yeah.
So how did you get from Wayland High School to working on these various shows?
When I graduated Wayland High School, I had found a passion and a focus and interest in film and TV and frankly just storytelling. When I was there taking the classes offered by Waycam and the school's joint collaboration, whether it be TV production or script to screen in particular, that was like a big one for my formative years in high school. And then after graduating, that time in those classes really propelled me towards wanting to go to school for film and TV production, where I went to the University of Texas at Austin for their radio, television, film program. The radio was a little bit more stuff they used to do, but it was more so focused on film and TV when I got there. I just really grew my interest and passion and wanting to know more about each process of this, medium really of storytelling. And I got so many great experiences there and so many great hands-on opportunities that allowed me to connect or learn more and meet more people, that my last semester resulted in me doing a semester abroad here in Los Angeles, where I got to kind of see how the industry and how everything worked out here. That resulted in the ability to connect with people who worked at that program to help connect me to my first industry job out here, which was, like I mentioned, American Horror Stories.
What about storytelling really connects with you?
Storytelling, the idea of just entertaining or the emotions that can come out of stories. And this goes back to way early in my life experience and just my history. I have such a connection with, my whole family and my grandparents, who introduced me to so many movies that are in shows that are formative to me, that I, fondly remember the times first experiencing those stories and just kind of remembering how that all made me feel. And I later, when I got to a program when I was younger, that was my first introduction to WayCam through a program called Pegasus. And they had an offering where they allowed us kids to get hands-on with the equipment and record with cameras our fellow campers and tell the story of this camp and this program and experience. That was kind of, I guess, the first time I realized that stories don't just impact me in terms of what I'm consuming, but there's also me realizing, I can tell stories, I can share stories. And as something as simple as just turning a camera on and capturing a moment is a story in itself.
If you're watching a cooking show, a lot of times the chefs will mention an entree or a certain food that just brings memories from their childhood, and that's the way of them telling their own story. Same with music. It could be a genre or a phrasing of a particular word, how those words are wrapped around each other. If you say it in one particular way, it's not going to mean the same, or it's not going to elicit or bring about the same amount of emotion. And for you, if you are in the production, creative side of things, I would think that you have to have your hands in almost all of it, because if the music is off just a little bit, the words are going to be missing. If the camera's off a little bit, then how the actor is expressing that emotion might be missed. So you have to know a lot, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, even if I currently work in the post-production, editorial, VFX kind of world, I still have to, recognize how music, like you mentioned, plays into story. Or even getting my hands on a script. I personally like to read every script, so I know from the earliest onset of, like, this was the skeleton of the story and the idea before even we start filming. So we get a sense of kind of what the story is going for, and then just to see how each new, I guess, layer to this cake gets added, it starts to become something more fully realized. And the hopefully emotional impact of whether it be making someone excited or sad or scared or angry, or in a good way, just what the goal to make someone feel, seeing how each layer gets added on, hopefully delivers a more realized experience.
Is it a moment of relief or excitement for you on premiere night?
For me, it's relief, but it's also kind of excitement. I'm in this to tell the story and share the story with people. So nothing makes me happier than to see, whether it be my parents or my friends, extended family, colleagues, people who have been so formative in my experience over the years in multitude of roles, teachers, mentors, etc. Getting to be able to share that thing that I spent, whether it be a couple months to a year on, it's something that now I can fully, share that experience of my journey on that time, of the time I spent on that project with the people who get to experience it with fresh eyes. And, hopefully realize that even the small role that I played in this big crew helped deliver an experience that they enjoyed.
Do you have any dream projects that you would just give your left kidney to be able to work on?
Yeah, I guess. But I also kind of consider every project a dream project in a way. In a way, I'm just happy that I get to go from one thing to the next thing. I'm sure there are some things that, would be really either cool or really fun to experience or get my hands on and be a part of. But in this industry, I take nothing for granted, and I'm just happy that I even get to do this to begin with, whether it's any project really, because this is a really, I feel like, unique and interesting field that's always changing, and it's always shifting. So just to have any part of it at any time always feels like a dream to begin with.
That's completely fair, and I have to say, very humble too. What moments from even starting off at Wayland High School, working with WayCam, stand out to you the most?
I think I have one. Yeah, there was a time when I was taking a class at Wayland High School with in partnership with WayCam, script to screen, like I mentioned, where I can distinctly remember the multitudes of like phases that Mr. Mullane had introduced us to with how a movie gets made. And a couple touchstone moments that I always remember, I feel like, or will always remember, that go into the process of making a movie were the first time I had to pitch, in terms of having an idea, having a script, and having to share it with somebody and say, this is what I want to do. This is what I see this story being and why I believe it should be made. That is so important in terms of just having that foundation of a story and in your belief in it and your want to tell it, that I feel like carries into everything I've done since, in just terms of having the drive and the constant almost urgency that you want to be a part of telling this story, whatever that story is. Another would also just be the first time working with other people, and in this case, we collaborated really closely with the acting class. One of the acting classes that was, I believe, advanced acting. I can't remember the name of the exact class title. And just working with people outside of our immediate surroundings of the film, almost behind the scenes course of filmmaking, and to collaborate with a whole new group of people and meeting the actors, talking with actors, and having that experience of how do we make a collaborative environment together to share this one story. I would say those are two very distinct moments that I can remember and will probably always remember, because they were firsts for me at that time that have still carried into what I do today.
It would seem to me that in learning how to pitch something, that's also teaching you how to be confident in this thing that you've poured your heart and soul into. So that has lasting effects.
Yeah, I think the ability to just stand in front of, whether it's one person or multiple, and kind of put yourself out there, to whatever degree, whether it's, getting on a stage and performing in a play or musical, or just delivering a speech, or pitching something like I did in that time, from my experience. The idea of putting yourself out there, really just showing your commitment and your passion for something. That's integral, I think, in any aspect of life. And it just so happened that this one moment from my time in high school, taking that class with the collaboration of WayCam, was something that at the time I didn't realize would be so integral to everything I would do, whether it be professionally or personally. At the time, I thought, oh, it's just me trying to get a movie made with my high school class, and as a part of, as nothing more than just a project that I'm excited to be a part of and do. But looking back on it, you realize that is a great stepping stone to just how to go about life in any, I guess, fashion, to put yourself out there and to show that you when you're passionate about something, or you want to do something, you have to put yourself out there a little bit first.
This is the 40th anniversary of WayCam, and I've had the pleasure of speaking with several folks at this point, all of which, to borrow from you, have been passionate about how the programs, the offerings have really set them up to be successful, and success might not be measured in awards. Each person has had their own definition and description of success. If there are folks watching that are saying, well, you know what, Wayland's cool and all, but I'd love to live in Hollywood. I would love to be able to work on a TV show. What advice would you have, whether or not they even know that WayCam exists, about just starting here, putting themselves out there, and where do they even just begin in general?
I would say that when it comes to WayCam, I think the greatest first step, if I had to give any, is just to be in the room and collaborate. Hollywood is such a collaborative business in town. There's so many people I've met and worked with who know other people I've met and worked with in completely different environments and surroundings on different projects. So just the idea to have that first step of being in an environment like WayCam where it is so collaborative, you're constantly in communication and in coordination with multiple different positions and people and community members or schoolmates if you're still in school. Just the idea to establish and start off in such a place that allows you to collaborate and communicate in that way is a huge first step in terms of, from my experience, and I feel like could be for anybody's experience. And then just kind of, a great place to also work on like stories and tell stories. I know WayCam is a part of the high school and it's a piece of the town of Wayland, which I grew up in and was, a huge part of my life. But it's a place that allowed me to really get my foundations of how to tell a story. And whether that be a movie story, a TV story, a sports story, a local news story, those are all stories and they all have a place to be told.
Well, thank you very much for telling us your story.
I thank you. I appreciate it.
When I decided to start this TV show, the very basis was because after the pandemic, we weren't talking to one another anymore. Myself included, I would take my phone and just walk around and pay attention to it, probably still guilty of it. But I realized when folks move into a community, we don't know what businesses are around, who might live near us, what stories they might have to share. And Parker, he really brought that to our attention today, that his desire to be in the film industry, I'm sure it's to be successful, but he likes to tell stories. And he was mentioning the layers that it takes to bring about those emotions, whether it's a camera angle or maybe music. That's kind of what it is for all of us. We have layers and layers, and we all have the opportunity to listen. So who do you think that we should meet next? What story should we hear?